Alright, so episodes 30 and 31 of Kamen Rider Zeztz. So, yeah. And sorry I haven't gotten the Agent Minami shorts video out. I will soon. That just kind of got away from me. So, anyways, yeah, so these two episodes are actually really good. I think 30 is a nice conclusion to the stuff that happened with Minami in 29, and then 31 is a nice start to this next thing that they're doing. So, yeah. So, episode 30 deals with the fallout of Baku being told that Minami is an agent of code, and working through his feelings and everything on that, and telling the audience and Baku that, or what they need to know in regards to Minami and everything. So basically, what we learned from episode 30, or yeah, 30. I was almost gonna say 31. Is that after Baku and Minami's parents died, Baku's adopted parents, Minami's actual parents, because they actually had her. After they died 4 years prior to the series beginning, I believe. Uh, Basically, Zero approached Minami when she was outside of her and Baku's house. Obviously, they don't live there anymore. I assume that they sold it and are now living in an apartment as they navigate life in their late teens and early 20s. Which just would make sense. You can't expect, like, people their age to have jobs that would help pay for what I assume is a house in a Japanese suburb of Tokyo. And I do know that this series does take place in Tokyo because one of the locations that they shoot in is or that they have shot in, is outside of, I think, a mall, or outside of a Japanese subway station, because there's, I think it's that, or maybe it's one of the two. It's either a shopping center or something like that. That they also shot with, or they shot at, in Kamen Rider Kabuto. And thanks to watching the first 5 episodes of Kabuto, I know that's apparently supposed to be near Shibuya. So, yeah. And it's no surprise that they would shoot in Tokyo. But they have kind of kept it a little ambiguous as to where the series is specifically supposed to take place in Japan. You know it's supposed to take place in a city, but you don't know which one because there are several. But it just makes more sense that it is Tokyo. But yeah. So, yeah, so they just would then, at some point after that, move into an apartment and everything. I think, at least. I think that's it. I could be wrong. Maybe it's the same place and they do pay for it. I don't know. But again, I could be wrong with what I just said. So, yeah. So after, like I was saying, Zero approached Minami and told her that Baku isn't related to her by blood and that he was adopted by their parents before she was born. Obviously, Baku's like, I think he's supposed to be like 5 years older than her. Is the thing, or no, only 3. Right? I'm remembering because Minami is supposed to be 20 and Baku is supposed to be 23 in the series apparently. So, yeah. And it's funny though because their actors are younger than the characters. Minami's actress is younger than the character by about 2 years, and Baku's actor is younger than Baku is by about 3 years. So, yeah. And I also think that I wonder how this plot point would have played out if they had kept Minami as older than Baku rather than be the younger sibling and everything. I do think, however, that this works in the series' favor, that they had to alter this when they casted Minami's actress and made her younger than Baku. Because I do wonder how they would have played this. It would have been definitely a bit different if she was supposed to be at least a few years older than Baku. But yeah. And Zero told her that their parents were in charge of raising Baku and everything. That they were secret agents and everything. And then he offers her to become an agent to protect Baku as well now that their parents are dead. And Minami doesn't really know what to make of this, and she says that she's going to tell, or she wants to tell Baku about what Zero just said. But Zero tells her that if she does, Baku will be placed in the care of another agent. So, yeah. And obviously, because Minami doesn't want to lose Baku, basically because it seems like he's really the only family that she has, and vice versa at that point. She starts training to be an agent under code and everything. And you got to think about it this way, even though Minami's actress doesn't, because she portrays the younger Minami in flashbacks, Minami is 16. So, yeah, you have to think about that for a second. 16. Like, Zero is intentionally manipulating a teenager into becoming an agent and everything, and purposefully not telling her a lot of information. So, yeah, you have to think about it that way. This is just a thing that, like, I've started thinking about ever since, like, thinking about the fact that, like, in the last Harry Potter movie, because of how Alan Rickman and Michael Gambon, they shot the flashback sequences from the book that were in the movie. As a result of that, they don't look any different than they did, or than they do in the rest of the movie. So, yeah, so it is a bit confusing in terms of the book, or in terms of the movie, some of the sequences and when exactly they take place and everything. But yeah, especially since Alan Rickman was already in his, like, what, late 50s or something like that when they shot those. So, yeah. And on top of that, they look like they're wearing the same clothes. If they're not, they're wearing very similar clothes to what they do in the rest of the movie. So, yeah. So it's just one of those things where you think about it that way, and I'm also trying to think. I remember there was another thing in another piece of media that I've watched. Back to the Future. Specifically Back to the Future 2 and 3. Mainly 3, actually. Because because of how old Michael J. Fox looked, because he was in his, like, mid to late 20s at that point, you don't really kind of get the full impact of the fact that Marty is supposed to be 17 in all 3 of the movies. He still looked like he could pass for an older teenager in the first movie, but then he aged a few years in between when they shot that movie and started shooting Back to the Future 2 and then 3. So yeah, I think it was like a lag time of like 4 years. 3-4 years, something like that. That was enough time for Michael J. Fox to age that much. But yeah. So it's one of those things where you do need to do the math on these things, and yeah, and the fact is that Minami, she looks like a young adult, but at the same time, like, her actress just hasn't aged too much after that. Generally, you don't age too much from, like, late teenage to early 20s, but yeah. especially when you have a younger looking face and everything. But yeah. Um, but yeah, so Zero intentionally manipulated Minami in that way, and she was 16 at the time. So yeah, Zero has really no qualms about he um who he manipulates and everything. It's so shit, I'm not gonna lie, what he does. So yeah. So then um we have that, and he gave her a necklace with the code number of 17, with a gold cat emblem that the 17 is carved into. Um and it's just it's just a fucked situation, honestly. But yeah. And then we do get a couple like flashbacks to previous episodes. Um Although, huh, it is kind of weird because they are flashbacks to episodes that were in Baku's premonition rather than yeah, or at the very yeah, or at least one is in the premonition. I can't remember what the other one was. So it's a flashback to when Minami says that, or asks for a furlough from work. Um, that was revealed to be a call to code and not her actual day job. And then uh, there was also a flashback to where in the premonition dream she found Baku's secret agent lair and started talking to Zero and everything. And I I think yeah, it is funny that you have to think about it as well, where even in the premonition dream she was a secret agent. Baku just didn't know that at the time. But yeah. Um and yeah, and it is funny because they use that in the flashback as if she still did that in this timeline, which wasn't the case whatsoever. I granted they were shown a bit of that, but yeah, I don't really, I don't know. So yeah, and she talks to Nazca a bit about it. And Nazca just basically tries to comfort her, I think, about it. And Fujimi tries to, I think, talk to Baku about what he just learned, because Baku is pissed. And you can tell that because Baku reacts in such violent fucking anger. But then it turns to sadness after Minami leaves the the headquarters and everything, or the secret agent room, and yeah, but who should show up but Otaka Nox. And this does just go to show that, like, every one of them, Code and Nox and the lady, they know where Baku and Minami live, and they know who they're in league with and everything. So yeah, and they could just pop over to their house at any time. Which, granted, we thought, or we knew about that from in regards to Code from a previous episode, where Baku set up all the spy cameras all over the place, all over their house. So yeah, but yeah, so we get Otaka coming to talk to Baku about what was said in the dream. And basically, he he asks where Minami is. Baku says she left, and he Otaka's like, "You let her go? She's a valuable information source." And I think it's Fujimi's like, "What can you do? They're brother and sister, or what do you expect them to do? They're brother and sister." And Otaka's like, "No, she's an agent of code. She was never his sister." Basically, kind of trying to reaffirm that, and that she was an agent of code, feeding information to them, and all that. But yeah, but then Baku leaves and basically just gets under his covers and everything. And I assume Otaka just leaves and everything because Baku obviously doesn't want to talk and everything. I'm kind of surprised that they didn't have a moment with Otaka and Minami and Nazca where like they have a conversation and Minami tells Otaka what exactly happened and how she's been working for Code and everything. But yeah. So then we see Baku fall asleep. He goes back into the dream world, meets up with Nem, and he goes to meet up with Zeztz, who has basically turned Minami into the nightmare that she is basically fused with. And Baku gets there and goes Catastrom, starts fighting the nightmare and everything. And you can they have a cool thing, which is they show part of Minami's like face under the suit for the nightmare, and she is very much like conscious and everything. It's just that she can't control her body because the nightmare is in control. So yeah. So then Baku basically has an internal thing where he just basically realizes that like he and Minami have a true like brother sister bond and everything, and he does want to save her from the nightmare that's controlling her. And that unlocks a new mode with the Catastrom Capsum thing. The hors d'oeuvre form, as apparently it is called. So, yeah. So, he then uses this form to, like, I'm not sure if it's, like, reversing the dream's destruction or just repairing the dream. But yeah, he uses it to basically bypass Zegg's, like, altering of the dream and separates Minami from the nightmare and kills the nightmare and everything. Then we see Zeztz just confused as to how Baku's able to do that, and then he sees Nem after she says something towards Baku about what just happened, and basically he is going to say something to her, or talk to her about what's going on and everything. So yeah, so then after that, we see Minami come into Baku's agent headquarters, and they have I guess breakfast kind of thing is what it's supposed to be. And considering the food that they eat is just toast, but yeah. And basically they have a heart to heart where no matter what, they are siblings, no matter if he is adopted into her family or not. Which I think is just sweet. Like, genuinely, I love how they've handled the family dynamics between Baku and Minami thus far into the series. And I love that that doesn't stop, even if they're adopted siblings and Minami was an agent of code. She basically tells him at some point during the episode that, like, I think it's during this that she's like been done, or she is done working for Code, and yeah, she is no longer, yeah, she's no longer working for them and everything, and yeah, um, and it's just really nice. It's really sweet, and I really do appreciate how they have been handling Baku and Minami's like relationship and everything as siblings in this series, because as I've said before, we don't get a ton of this in media, unfortunately. They always have to portray, at the very least in like Western stuff, they always have to portray siblings as being at each other's throats, which as I get older, I actually realize it's just like, that's only a thing with like kids and everything. Um, but yeah, and it is a source of conflict, but at the same time, it's just not great. Um, but yeah. Um, so move on to episode 30. Um, yeah. Um, Baku gets told, or Baku is at cemetery where, or I think it's a cemetery, and there's a lot of like Japanese headstone or tombstones and everything, uh, where he's paying respects to his adoptive parents. But who should be there than Zero? And yeah, Zero says something to him in English, which Baku doesn't immediately understand. He says, "You've really grown." Um, so yeah, because he says it in English. Um, and Baku, before that, when they just walk right past each other, he doesn't immediately fully recognize Zero, but he does a double take, and he realizes he's seen him somewhere before, and he has at the last bit of his premonition dream. Um, but yeah, Zero tells him that Code is gonna kill him and everyone connected to him for revealing all the information he learned in his premonition, and they'll handle it in the dream world rather than in the real world. And yeah, and he says he'll see him next in his dream. So yeah. We also see um at Code headquarters 3 talking to someone in English as well. Um, saying that I think it's, they say we can no longer overlook his actions, and 3 says leave it to me. Basically, it's a little vague. They could be talking about Baku, they could be talking about Zero. I'm assuming they're just talking about Baku though. And yeah, so Baku comes up with a plan to keep everyone else awake, Fujimi, Nasuka, and Minami, while he deals with Zero in his dream, to make sure that they're out of the way from, or they're out of harm's way for the meantime. And yeah, it's actually funny. He has his headquarters pull up some energy drinks for them, and yeah, and they also just stay up the whole night, which at first is not necessarily going to be a big deal because, you know, just one night of sleep. You can miss it. You're just going to be drowsy the next day. You can deal with that. After probably a few days, though, it's not going to be great for them. But yeah, so I imagine they might just crash at some point if this isn't dealt with. So yeah, so Baku goes into Zero's dream, and it's a place that just looks all like organized and secretive and everything, kind of like what you'd expect from like maybe a British secret agent headquarters or something like that. or like government building or something like that. Uh, but yeah, so then Nem appears in the dream behind him, and he just gets freaked out by her, and he's just like, "What are you wearing?" And she's just basically wearing a mascot costume based on Zetz's, like the main Zeztz suit. Um, and she's just like, "I guess this is what the dream's about." So yeah. So then we see a black and silver. It's not even black and white. It's black and silver, black and gray version of the Zeztz suit. Although without the Zeztz driver, it instead has a thing that looks like it but is not the same. Um, and so Baku transforms into the what is it? The impulse form, the red form of Zeztz, and starts fighting it. So yeah. However, and he tells Nem to get out of there. So yeah. So then, while they fight, he ends up breaking the reality around them in terms of the dream, and he starts seeing a flashback in Zero's mind of Baku and his adoptive father coming into this place where Zero is, and there's also the Zeroider, the motorcycle. That's also the robot body that Zero was using. And Baku sees through this that Zero let him like rev the engine on the Zeroider and everything. And he thinks that it's really cool. I assume Baku's around like probably tweens, somewhere in there. And Zero says something to him about training to become an agent, and Baku just doesn't know what he means by that. So, yeah. So then, while that's happening, we see Nem slip into Zeke's little hideout, and or Zeke's lair, and he starts trying to get into her mind about the fact that she was born of the nightmares and everything, and that she has like a lot of sin in her and everything, and she is the one spawning all of the nightmares and everything. So yeah, so then we see Nox and the lady talking and everything, where he says something about them being the perfect toy for Zeke to play with, and the lady is just like basically threatening him with like, you know what'll happen to you if she gets harmed or something like that. And he's just like, don't worry, I need to use her for my own purposes, is basically what he says. And yeah, so then he goes into the dream world and gets Nem out of there. And yeah, so they start walking away, but Nox tries to comfort her by saying, don't worry, the nightmares he showed you have existed long before you were born. But then she's still like just I guess inconsolable maybe about the fact that like, yeah, she was born of nightmares and everything, and she is also spawned nightmares and all that shit. And Zeke just getting into her head. So yeah, so she goes off, leaving Nox there. And yeah, so then we cut back to Baku, and he realizes that that's the real dream that Zero was having, not the previous one and everything, and that he purposely hid the dream from Baku, and he was wondering why that was. So yeah, so he goes back to fighting the evil Zeztz, and it's funny because like he initially thinks the evil Zeztz is Zero, And I think the thing is even voiced by Zero's actor, just under a filter, and but he realizes also, I think it was actually before this, that when he realizes that the dream that they were just in was fake, he's not Zero, but he is the nightmare that dwells in Zero's subconscious and everything. So yeah, and then he after when he's talking to Zero, um, well after he fights the Dark Zets again, um, they then appear in their or in Baku's like headquarters in the dream world, and he basically puts two and two together that Zero is his father, and yeah, his biological father, and he even calls Zero out on the shit that he's been doing. He's like, "What kind of father are you anyway?" And yeah, then we also get Nem talking to the lady, because she appears in that little, like, I don't know what exactly to call it, but like, I guess garden kind of place on the other side of the window in the lady's lair. And yeah, that's basically what I thought it was. Is just a portal to the nightmare world, or not nightmare, the dream world, and everything through a nightmare, I guess, zone from it, kind of like the ghost zone from Danny Phantom. But yeah, um, and Nem starts talking to the lady. She's just like, "Why did you let me live?" And the lady's just like, "You're my child. I created you." But then Nem's just like, "No, the nightmares created me. You should have just let me die or whatever." And yeah, and I can't really tell if the stuff. So she has stuff on her hands because she puts her hands, or one of her hands, up to, maybe it's both of them, up to the window, and she has like black shit all over them. I can't tell if like that's maybe something corrupting her, maybe slowly, or if it's like dirt from the ground. It could be either. It looks more like dirt, but still, because she did like fall to the ground and everything. So yeah, um, so we get a lot of reveals in this episode, and yeah, just literally as one door closes, another opens in this series, and just constantly, and it's just overloading this. And I gotta say, I accidentally predicted this plot twist about a week ago in Kuro the Artist's Discord server. Um, and I just jokingly did. I said, my prediction, Baku is Zero's kid. I jokingly said that, but it ended up being true. I don't know how I did that. I just threw out like the wildest like prediction I could, and it ended up being true. So yeah. Um. So that's a thing now. Um. I don't know how to feel about it. On the one hand, it does make sense though, or on the other hand, I should say, it does make sense though, because realistically, like, why would they have just chosen this random kid to do this and get trained up to be a secret agent and all this shit? It's one of those things where like they are like slowly connecting the dots on a lot of this stuff. I hope that we get more backstory on what exactly happened, because we haven't had too many like flashbacks to when Baku was a kid in regards to this shit. Um and I will say it does make sense that they're adopted, and the fact that they have explained what happened to their parents, because their parents haven't shown up. And granted, you would think that it's mainly because of the fact that they're adults and they maybe live somewhere else, but I don't think it actually. I guess it actually just isn't. So, yeah, they probably will reveal what happened, to their parents exactly in a future episode, and we will see what happens when they do. Um, but yeah, and then there's also the shit working in the background of this, because we have 3 talking to some other higher up in code, and he just he just seems to be on sort of a thing where he is going to be working to eliminate whatever whatever's going on, whether it's Baku or Zero or whatever. I imagine maybe we'll get a reveal that they weren't talking necessarily about Baku, but they were talking about Zero, because some of the shit that Zero's doing is not the smartest. I'm not gonna lie. I had this whole thing written out, like a sort of like essay about code and how their shit doesn't make a lot of sense, and they're acting like in a way that's gonna make them lose. And I honestly think that they're wanting to get rid of Zero, maybe. I would not be surprised if they do eventually, like, get rid of Zero. Because in his own twisted, fucked up way, he does show a bit of care for Baku. However, at the same time, he's an asshole. He's a shitty person. He genuinely only cares for him in the sense of what he wants Baku to be, as opposed to what Baku wants to be. Yeah, because it's obvious he wants Baku to be an agent, as opposed to like letting Baku pick what he wants to be for himself and everything. And when Baku, like, for lack of a better word, bucks against that, like, Zero doesn't really act like an understanding kind of parent or person. He instead reacts like a person who just does not give a shit about his child's, like, agency and everything. Instead, he acts like, I don't know, like a conservative parent who sees their children as an extension of them rather than their own people. So, yeah. It's just one of those dumb things that is just unfortunately prevalent in society, but yeah. So, in regards to this, a lot to think about here. The stuff with Nem, like, I feel for her, like, genuinely. Like, she is being put through hell because of the nature of what she is, and the fact that, like, she's having an identity crisis and she's crashing out on all this shit, and she doesn't know what to make of a lot of it. I honestly think someone who actually gives a shit about her, so probably Baku, has to talk with her about this shit. Give her a fucking hug, because she needs it. And just have her come to terms with what she is, and that she doesn't have to be anything other than what she wants herself to be. You know, because that seems to be a constant theme in this series, is that, you know, you are what you make of yourself rather than what people expect of you or have set you up to be. So I think that is going to be one of the ways that they go with Nem and her development and everything. Because she genuinely just needs help. She needs, like, psychological help, because she doesn't know what the fuck to do with this shit. She's just had this all, like, forced upon her. And yeah, and I don't think, yeah, Zeke's just a rogue element. He wants to cause chaos, and he doesn't give a shit. He wants to manipulate people to his own entertainment. Nox is kind of neutral on her. I think that he could also help with whatever Baku would tell them and everything, because he has more answers and intelligence on the shit than Baku. The lady, I don't think she's the best person either to help Nem through this crisis, because she's also kind of a shitty person. She gave Nem away kind of for her own protection and everything because of what Code was going to do, but at the same time, she hates Code to the point of like really bad self-destruction, because realistically, her attacking Code headquarters with the nightmares was not a smart plan, I'm not going to lie. In the premonition dream, and she doesn't seem to be... She hasn't given me any inklings that she would act any differently, so... In reality, so... Yeah. And she has this, like, cold detachment from everything that, I don't think is great. So, yeah. And, yeah, and I think also probably Minami, Fujimi, and Asuka could probably help out as well. But, yeah. So that's just a big thing in regards to the developments that they're doing and everything. And I think in a future episode we will see Baku and Nem talk to each other about their parents and what they were born as and who they want to be in the future and everything. Because that seems to be what the second half of this series is trying to set up for them to be. So, yeah. So, honestly, 2 good episodes. Can't wait to see how this new stuff continues into the next episodes. So, yeah. So, I don't really have much else to say. So, yeah, links in the description to all my shit. Subscribe if you want. I'll see you guys in the next one.